All right, Representative Davis, we've had, compared to last week, a very busy week in the House. Several measures passed and did not pass this week that the Republican caucus had a lot of opinions on. Why don't you take us through a couple of the big issues that hit the House floor this week?
Well, you're exactly right. This has been a busy week at the Indiana House, working late into the evenings on a couple of occasions this week, which is allowing us to get some things done that we need to get done. Unfortunately, not all of them were positive for Hoosiers across the state, and unfortunately, we probably stopped as many jobs this week as we created or we could have allowed. In House Bill 1369, the minority report was rejected that would have allowed for a public-private partnership on what's known as the Oleana Tollway that would have created hundreds and hundreds of jobs as we build out one of the busiest expressways in northwest Indiana, one of the busiest interchanges up around the Chicago area. And we know going forward that the increased traffic is going to be insurmountable. Our idea was to allow for a P3 that would have allowed for the lease of that tollway, much like we did on the Indiana Toll Road. Had bipartisan support, moving along quite nicely. Our friends across the aisle decided to adopt, or try to adopt as it turned out, the majority committee report that came out of one of the other committees other than roads, which is interesting because the author of the bill, which was a strip and insert, happened to be Chairman Austin, who chairs our Roads and Transportation Committee, and chose to take a highway bill to another committee to pass it out with huge regulations and roadblocks stopping this important expressway in its tracks. Brought the majority committee report to the floor today, was defeated, did not move forward on a 49-49 vote. So here we sit with thousands of Hoosiers out of work, an opportunity to put those folks to work in gainful employment, and we didn't cross the finish line. And so very disappointing from that standpoint. We worked on a bill for education, House Bill 1367, which would allow for school corporations to transfer funds, some funds, not all their funds, some funds from the general fund, transportation fund, their buildings funds, to help get them through a really difficult period right now with educational funding. Once again, the House majority decided to take this opportunity rather than try to help schools through a difficult time. Want to take this opportunity to completely disrupt everything that we did last year to try to move education forward. This committee report removes virtual charter schools, requires that we have over 50% of the parents in any school corporation having to approve any additional charter schools, which is not going to happen. Just a number of issues like that that took a very well-meaning bill to allow schools to operate in a difficult time and completely change that. So pretty disappointing at this point in time. Again, we're talking about trying to create jobs, trying to get our state through a difficult environment so that we are positioned when we come on the other side of this downturn to move forward more than surrounding states. So I guess pretty disappointing week from those standpoints. Now, it wasn't all sour grapes here this week. Today we got news that Union City was granted a neighborhood enhancement grant of some $1.2 million that's going to allow them to go into a near downtown neighborhood and do some cleanup, remove some properties or some buildings that are in disrepair, to aid some folks in some low-income housing. and then to allow them to recapture those funds and put them back into their community. At a time when this community can really use the help, I got to thank the Lieutenant Governor and the folks in that area that have allowed this to happen. So, from that standpoint, it was a pretty good week for the folks in Union City, Indiana, and certainly well deserved. They put together a great proposal, a great program that the Lieutenant Governor agreed with, as did the City of Richmond. It was granted in the same grant or at the same time. And so, from that standpoint, pretty good week. So it wasn't all bad, but we certainly had opportunities here to put Hoosiers to work in gainful employment, to help our educational system by allowing them some flexibility that would have only lasted until we get through these tough times, and only to have the majority say no. So we'll try again next week and see if we can get some changes made to that legislation and get back on the right track.